Welcome to the Conditional Release Program, a podcast that delves into the netherworld of cults, crims and con artists. We don't like these people and it shows. We believe the best way to expose them is to hold them up to a harsh light, point our index fingers in their general direction and mock them mercilessly, take them down a peg or two until they cease to exist in any other form than the shit on our shoes. I'm Jack the Insider, otherwise known as Peter Hoysted for tax purposes.
And I'm Joel Hill, and today we are going to sift through the embers of the Trump presidency and the broken MAGA cult of Donald Trump to consider where to from here. Will Trump, like the old South, rise again, which it didn't and hasn't since the Civil War at least, so what the fuck ever.
Yes, the Trump brand has taken a battering and MAGA hat wearers are dropping off like the great orange one has the COVID lurgy with a bit of leprosy thrown in for good measure.
Yep, dash of that. And this comes with the news of the closure of 4 or 5 Trump for New England stores who've been knocking out a bit of Trump gear, anything from sweatshirts to Trump tea towels to tat like that. And now they've closed their doors forever, but not before the owner of the chain, now reduced to 1 store, sent out a message on social media which exclaims,
"Items will be $5 to $10. Come help us clear our inventory," it screamed.
Yep.
I know you love a bargain, Joel, so you could pick up a Trump emblazoned hoodie, normally priced at a couple of $100, now into $10 tops.
I do love a bargain. Really, basically what we could do is we could just buy a whole bunch of shit and clothe the impoverished around the world with just this Trump gear. You know, the sweats and tees, Trump jeans, Trump shoes, other Trump shit. Would you get it for a song? They might refuse to take it, but we'll see.
Now, New England, the 6-state aggregation in the northeast of the United States, is not exactly Trump territory, but if the very sad closure of these stores is anything to go by, the Trump brand is in free fall. I wrote a column 2 weeks ago that Donald's goose was cooked and he would simply disappear from any serious political discussion, and I can only say I was right, and this is the first step in reducing the old autocrat to a grubby footnote in history.
Good.
And we'll get on that in a deeper dive. But we can't now, because while the Trump is in history's dumpster. Oh, God, that rhymes. That's why I got confused over it. There's been other stuff happening and other important stuff, and we'll tell you all about it in our weekly news. And what's been happening in the world today, Joel?
Well, we woke this morning to read news of protests across the Russian Federation, which is pretty big, yes, and featuring over 2,700 arrests, which you might notice is a slightly larger number than the Capitol Hill insurrection. The day of protest had been called after the arrest of Russian anti-corruption activist and very big stone in Vladimir Putin's shoe, Alexei Navalny, who was placed under arrest when he returned to Moscow earlier in the week.
Navalny had only just recovered from Novichok nerve agent poisoning, believed to have been placed in his underwear, Joel.
That is needlessly cruel.
Yeah, that's nasty.
Fuck, don't fuck with Putin. We shouldn't even be doing this. The turnout must have caused concern for Putin, who had tried to basically scotch the nationwide protest by declaring the gatherings illegal and calling the jackboot thugs.
But still the people came, and I started watching this on social media as it unfolded, first in the Pacific port of Vladivostok, where thousands turned out chanting, "Putin is a thief."
Truer words have never been said, or as I would say to Putin, no, no, no. This seemed to catch Putin's police off guard. Yeah. I would not be treading like this. Anyway, luckily he doesn't listen. Well, maybe he doesn't. So basically this caught Putin's police off guard, but as the protests grew across Russia's 11 time zones, it's a big place.
Big joint.
This really culminated in this huge rally where thousands took to the streets in Moscow.
Yes, Joel, I did see some footage taken by protesters in central Siberia in Russia's third largest city, Novosibirsk, where Putin's wallopers wade into the crowd making violent arrests. But there is something different about these protests. There was a real defiance and great courage shown, possibly by Russians who have been encouraged to see one wannabe dictator in Trump fall by the wayside.
Yeah, but Putin's a bit of a tougher nut to crack than Daddy Golf Trump. But
sure.
Yeah, I mean, the protest might be seen as a fairly big shift in the sentiment over in Russia.
I believe so.
Putin has a secret police apparatus, not even that secret, and all the tools of a totalitarian state at his disposal to try and put these quite courageous people, I wouldn't fucking do it, down and out. But we all know at the end of the day, like Arabs bringing all the other things before it, like people power cannot be extinguished, not easily at least.
That's right. And of course, Putin is a thief, a man with over $10 billion in his personal accounts, and that's just on the Mossack Fonseca revelation several years ago. He's a kleptocrat and a vicious tyrant, but maybe his time is coming. And in other crime news, the largest and most powerful crime syndicate in the world is on trial.
Yeah, we're really treading on toes today. Let's not get killed. But yeah, so in December 2019, Italian police rounded up 334 people, which is quite a few. These are lawyers, business people, accountants, a police chief, and the president of the Calabrian Mayors Association, which I didn't know existed until now, and a former member of the Italian Parliament on charges related to the Calabrian organised crime, basically murder and extortion.
Yeah, extortion, drug dealing, the usual.
The good stuff. The formal legal process against more than 470 people all up is underway, and a maxi trial will soon move from Rome to a large courthouse being prepared for the occasion in Calabria in order to accommodate all the defendants and their lawyers, like 700 buses worth.
'Ndrangheta, the Calabrian mafia, is finally being brought to book, and the outcome of the trial is going to be something to watch. And while the Sicilian mafia, La Cosa Nostra, captured our attention in movies like The Godfather, 'Ndrangheta was quietly building up its numbers and its contacts to become the real force in global organised crime. 'Ndrangheta, sometimes referred to in Australia and elsewhere as the Honoured Society, has an estimated global turnover of around $70 billion. That makes it bigger than Australia's largest public company, BHP Billiton. It has an estimated 80% of Europe's cocaine market. God, can you imagine the money?
Oh, mate, I wish I could invest in this firm. Like, do they pay dividends? Like,
it moves heroin. It moves heroin into the US through processing plants in Guyana, in South America. It has formed coalitions of convenience with Mexico's cartels and with other transnational syndicates to globalise drug trafficking and launder money. The biggest problem they have is what to do with all their ill-gotten gains, and money has been washed so that now 'Ndrangheta, which basically means man of honour, have significant holdings in commercial and residential property developments throughout Europe and the US. In Australia, they engage in drug trafficking and extortion rackets, often through the fruit and vegetable markets. 20 years ago, Coles and Woolies were paying 'Ndranghetisti almost $2 million a year over fruit and veg packing rackets.
That is quite interesting, actually. And the trial is yet to begin, with the prospect of those being convicted of serious mob-type offences being sent to prison to enjoy their sentences in solitary confinement, which is a form of torture. A move the Italians made to bring down the Sicilian mafia with great effect 20 years ago. I mean, fuck that. That would be not nice. Yeah,
that's how they do it, solitary confinement. And hats off to the police and prosecutors, especially one Nicola Gratteri, the chief prosecutor in Calabria, who has devoted his life to bringing down this evil mob. The man lives his life in a virtual prison, his home a compound, and his every move made under constant police guard. And what happens next will be crucial, and we'll keep you informed. But 'Ndrangheta's global power has already taken a battering, and hopefully there's more of that to come.
Now, Jack, we will be taking a look at the Trumpster in our deeper dive, inevitably, but revelations are starting to drip out from his presidency, and it's painting a picture of a POTUS who was genuinely strange, a weird guy.
Very odd, Joel. Yes, the Trumpster is obsessed with badgers, our hairy little friends from the woods in the Northern Hemisphere. Whether he likes them or not is hard to tell, but in a book soon to be released, Sinking in the Swamp, How Trump's Minions and Misfits Poisoned Washington, the story is told that the Great Orange One would often break away from important discussions on national security and what have you to ask his then Chief of Staff, GOP Chairman Reince Priebus, what badgers do. Are they mean to other animals? Are they neat and tidy? Or do they throw their badger possessions all over the place? Trump also would ask Priebus, who hails from Wisconsin, where the badger is the state animal, if badgers had personalities or if, and I quote, they were boring.
Jesus Christ, he's a fucking child. And they're not, Jack, and neither is the Trumpster, who, when it came to discuss Middle Eastern policy or healthcare or whatever the fuck Kim Jong-un was up to, everyone around the table would just have to wait while poor old Reince Priebus would stammer his way through half-fucking-formed answers about badgers to keep the Trumpster happy. Like, what a fucking baby.
I
My
know,
God.
and I look forward to more of
president.
these revelations about the Trumps' barely adequate intellectual capacity to run a 7-Eleven, let alone the free world, Joel. And that takes us nicely into our new segment and sticks to this week's TCRP's theme on where the cult of MAGA is today and if it will survive the serious kicking that is coming Donald Trump's way. It's time to look at our friends at the Betfair Punters Trump Fraud Exposed Group. How are our favourite Trump punters getting on, Joel? What sort of serious mental illness has come their way after watching the gruesome image of Joe Biden, Bible in hand, taking the oath of office?
Yeah, our Trump punter mates have gone eerily quiet on the Telegram. It's been a very lively chat in the lead up to inauguration with that wild speculation of what was to happen on the 20th of January. I mean, like, they were all over it. It was like messages every few seconds. Most people were convinced the National Guard troops were actually being moved in to set the stage for mass arrests as opposed to keeping these fucking idiots away from the inauguration. And that basically they were going to take down everyone, including Tom Hanks and Lady Gaga, who are incredibly unpopular in q-anon circles.
I know she survived. She survived. Yeah, she made it through.
Pedovores. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they've got a fucking story for that too. And a few of them actually said they bought some bags of Coke to stay up and celebrate the coming of the storm, where like everyone they disagree with is like politically is executed on television in front of them.
So when we didn't have the mass arrests and mass executions, Joel, how do they take it?
I don't know. I don't know how much Coke they actually had at that point, but they did not take it well. And when inauguration basically went off without so much as a squeak, the mood was sour. There was all this infighting, people giving up hope, those giving up hope being told in no uncertain terms to fuck off for bringing the mood down. Like as if the mood wasn't already like basically like a smouldering
funereal,
burning dreams.
Yes.
Oh my God.
I did come across one meme which took my eye, Joel, and I'll read it out. Joe Biden is illegitimately elected president and will only last a few weeks in office before Trump releases massive evidence of voter fraud and takes back the White House. Trump will be president for 4 more years. Lots of sort of muscular emojis and celebratory emojis following it. Keep the faith, the boy said. We will get paid by Betfair, which you misspelled. That was from David Haar. You fucking idiot, David. You're an absolute moron. You cannot even spell Betfair. Come over here for a slapping. But he's hanging in there. And this is the thing we've got to love. We've got to love about these people. They're absolutely resolute. And they're hanging in there. And they want everyone and the Betfair Trumpers to do likewise.
Yeah, it's like almost like you can see the claw marks as they're being dragged out of the reality. So despite this example of delusional confidence, most of them have kissed their money goodbye, at least in the short term.
Yeah.
And I figured this would test the mettle of some of these people, and it really has. There's a lot of people just trying to figure out how to rebuild from here. I mean, some people really lost a lot of fucking money. Like these guys were not kidding around.
Yeah.
But the true believers are holding the line, and so many of these bets are not next president, but actually when Trump would leave the White House. So they basically have to believe that Trump is still in the White House and, Biden isn't the president. And basically they're going to take the reins of the presidency again in March because of this whole ridiculous idea of like this soul-sit nonsense about being president of the Republic as opposed to Corporation of America and all that usual
incorporation
bullshit.
of the US of
the defunct Corporation of America. But like, look, this is ridiculous. But if I had $75,000, or even some of these guys have more, sitting on this, I would do a few backflips to make it work. And I do feel sorry for these people. Some of them have lost everything. They're ruined. Like, it's like their kids are going to be like homeless. Like, this is fucked. But the thing that really sucks about this is they lost everything because mostly they put their faith in a delusional moron occupying what is traditionally a trusted position of power.
Yeah, that was
they backed the wrong horse. The horse was telling them to back him.
Yeah.
So they really feel like they've been cheated.
Minor gap in their logic right there, yeah.
It sucks. But despite all the ridiculous mental gymnastics involved in seeing Trump back in the West Wing somehow, they have another plan. They've got a backup plan. See, Betfair gives the option to cash out of bets. And in this market, it was settled before they had the chance to take advantage of this. So there is a flaw, though. In order for this to be profitable, the odds have to have gone down since you bet. So if you put $1,000 on 90 to 1, for him leaving the White House in 2025, you give it a couple of weeks, a bit of money comes in, and the odds, say, go down to like 60 to 1. That's not bad because you can then cash out your position and you can sell your stake and you get around $30,000. So this will be the basis for their class action lawsuit, not having the opportunity to capitalize on this early settlement.
Yeah, so that's the thing. The odds did not go down; they actually went up. So
of course they fucking did.
These wages are the handiwork of the degenerate gamblers who are addicted to Trump. So guys, you can't sue, or you can try and turn the exercise into an expensive failure. The law is very specific about punting around the world. If you put your hard-earned on the line and you obviously lose, your dough has gone into the bookies' bags as profit, and that's all there is to it. Your bets were insane, and a donation to the gambling industry. I hope they send you a note of thanks for putting their kids through the best schools, because it was truly the easiest money they will make in a long time.
Yeah, true.
And that takes us to this. In what critics have described as pointless, unnecessary filler and 30 minutes of your life you'll never get back. This might be true, but it is terribly unkind. It's our deeper dive on the cult of MAGA. Joel, we'll be getting onto the Trumpster fairly soon, but attention has turned to number 46, the duly elected POTUS. That's a real story. What's Joe Biden been up to in his first week?
Fairly uneventful inauguration. I didn't start for it.
Neither did I.
Nah. As much as I did want to see what Tom Hanks had to say and, try and find some sort of thing. And look, honestly,
Lady Gaga
so much shit.
Well.
Oh, I would love to have seen that, because just seeing that,
I did see the clip. She sang it really well. She sang Star Spangled Banner really well.
Well, you see, she's quite talented because she sold her soul to Satan. And when she drinks the adrenochrome just before the gig to make sure she's at peak condition. So it's really good. Yeah, they fucking hate her. It's quite funny. But
so once that was done, once we'd moved on and Joe Biden walked into the Oval Office, he's been pretty busy.
He has been pretty busy. I mean, the thing that I was expecting, because when you read enough QAnon stuff, and when you read enough, especially the Betfair guys, I've been really watching those guys a lot, you start getting a bit pilled and you start thinking, maybe there will be something, maybe something will happen, and nothing happens. So then he gets straight into business. And, there was obviously a lot of preparation because he went ahead and signed 30 executive orders.
That's right, yes.
Yeah, and just basically middle finger to Trump.
The first one was the US signing back on the Paris Climate Accord.
Yeah, good call. Happy with that.
That was
heaps
number
of progressive,
one.
Good shit.
And what else?
Some pretty cool stuff. Reverse the Muslim travel ban, which was just a cooked weird policy.
Mm-hmm. Nasty piece of racism.
Just a toilet
nasty piece of racism. Aimed at white supremacist, niche.
Fire out the racist vote.
That's all it was.
Which,
triggering,
let's face it,
people who shouldn't be triggered as well.
Yeah. That's fucking awful. And then you got lots and lots and lots of coronavirus stuff, really basic things that are really obvious. There's a few mask mandates and things going on.
Yes, the mask mandate's an interesting one. The executive order has very little legal status in terms of urging. Sorry,
it's a state's issue, so
it's all a state law enforcement issue. All it really is a guideline, and of course the Republicans just went, we're not going to do this anyway. They just threw their hands up and said, we're not going to support this anyway. So
it'll be a fucking mess, but it's a step in the right direction.
But it's the right thing to do, and the language that they use. I mean, and the visuals that they use. I mean, Biden's always masked. They're always masked around him. It sends the right signal, whether it's adopted or not. That's almost beyond a government's control. But we had the reinforcement of legal status of dreamers. That's those are children who have been born in the United States of illegal immigrants, known as dreamers.
It's constitutionally valid. It's ridiculous.
Back to the Barack Obama days, pre-Trump. And some other very satisfactory sort of moves in terms of immigration, opening up America, which is an immigrant nation, and proudly so. Yep. And opening it up to reducing these. It basically knocked over Trump's executive actions himself.
Which is good. And like they're also heading back into the World Health Organization.
Yes,
and
that's right.
Dr. Fauci is going to become the head of the delegation. The enemy of the people, Fauci, the worst guy to ever. I don't know something.
Yeah. Well, of course, John Bannon said Anthony Fauci's head should be on a pike outside the White House.
Charming. Steve's got a pardon as well.
Oh, Bannon, Steve Bannon, that's right. So he's got a pardon, so he's free to be
continue saying
doing
shit
these
like that.
terrible things, saying those terrible things. But isn't it pleasing to see little Anthony Fauci, just happy again? He's a happy boy. And he said of his work with the new administration that it was liberating, and I quote, one of the new things in this administration is if you don't know the answer, don't guess, he said. Just say you don't know the answer. So Anthony Fauci's having a wonderful time again and getting the good message out there. It's very late time for the United States with all the contingent issues around social distancing and mask wearing and so forth. You just wonder, their economy is going to be in the toilet for a long time.
So much damage has been done. So much damage. And the thing, like this weird thing about like the Americans have always had that funny thing of like, what are you, some sort of book learner? Oh, do you read books, you fucking nerd? And that sort of like distrust of experts and that really weird thing when you'd rather listen to what, like bloody Taylor Swift has to say in politics as opposed to like a political science lecture or something like that. That sort of like disdain for experts, disdain for academia, disdain for intelligence, that has been absolutely amplified by the last 4 years of this fucking idiot's presidency. I don't know. I think the Biden presidency is going to reverse some of that.
There's obviously, huge remnants of all of that sort of, that wasn't just a Trump thing, by the way.
No. He just amplified it.
Yeah, this is...
And legitimized it as well.
A long mistrust of government in the United States. But the issue, or the prevailing sort of circumstances are that those who are sensible about dealing with the pandemic are going to be the ones who survive it, or the ones who are untouched by it or less touched by it.
But then again, you've got those issues of socioeconomic status where people are touched by the pandemic as a result of having to go and work shit retail jobs. And they can't say no to shifts. It's tricky. And at the end of the day, they only make about $80 for doing it per day. Like, I mean, Jesus.
I know, it's terrible. It's terrible. So, and that is actually a Biden policy to raise the raise the minimum wage up to what would essentially, with a currency conversion, be the Australian minimum wage.
Give or take a couple of bucks. Not quite as high as ours.
And that's going to be hugely contested. That's going to be hugely contested.
Oh, the whinging is going to be just endless.
But it is one of those things, and look, they don't have the sorts of protections in their employment laws that we do here, or that arose here, and we had governments doing something about them.
And ours are shit. Theirs are just basically like fire anyone you like. Don't worry about it. Like it's a slave state. Like
if you're sick, just keep coming on in. I mean, don't take the worst thing you can do is take a day off, and you
you'll
can't
be shot.
Afford it. Yeah,
and they'll give you like 19 hours if 20 hours is the amount they need to do to give you health insurance.
Yeah, look, you have to say that there's so much inaction on the first year of the pandemic in the United States is going to be absolutely devastating for its economy.
Yeah, and
and for its people. I mean, the 500,000, 500,000 deaths will hit that probably around February or March, late February, March. And then, we've got another little milestone, and it's just sort of getting worse and worse and worse.
The anti-vax machine and all those guys will be minimizing the COVID death rate as usual, making people terrified of the vaccine, doing all the usual shit to try and diminish this. But at the end of the day, if Biden's policies directly help people in need, especially if he does a few cash splashes, which I believe is going to be the case, a few of these $2,000 checks around the place that are really obvious and people have them tangible. Now, of course, they're all going to try and give Donald Trump as much credit for anything that Biden does that's positive as much as possible, and they're going to spin everything to be as negative as possible. But there will be some of these progressive policies that will touch a few of these people where they can't help but to be a little bit thankful.
Look, I think we actually get there if the vaccination is rolled out properly. I think you'll actually get there, around about that time. That's when things potentially could change. If they've got some very smart people working in the administration now in terms of the rollout of the vaccine across the country. And, I read a bit about those people and just how good they are at delivering this service in a sort of mass
coordinating
way.
Shit.
And if they get that right, so, it's a big disparate place, but if they get it right in certain parts, then other parts are going to come along, So,
and as time goes on and no one's dying, I mean, anti-vaxxers are saying that they are, but they're not. They just randomly throw things out, like thousands of people are dying. It's like, who? It's like, oh, just people, just stuff and things.
And that didn't make the news, that would have made the news. Yeah.
Their grip on the sort of misinformation market there, I think, is going to be very difficult. They are very talented at basically being, professional fuckwits, but I think it's going to be a big challenge to them to stay relevant. And as we were saying in
so we've talked about
this is a big watershed moment for these guys. And I just don't think they're going to pull it off. But look, they've surprised me in the past. They're very good, sadly.
Resilient, if nothing else. Look, that's right. We've talked about this, but it may well go beyond anti-vaccination. I'm not suggesting this is the sorts of things we require from Joe Biden in his first and probably only term as president. Then it's that, not just the anti-vax movement, but the entire sort of, shall we say, irrational movement will basically start diminishing. Will start losing its pull and its power, and that's because
it's not being legitimised by the presidency.
Fact-based way.
At the end of the day, you had this bizarre thing where Trump would say in a debate that it's a little bit suspicious that babies will go in and get vaccination shots and come out different. Now, there's no basis.
He said that on Twitter. He said that on Twitter, I think about 2014, well before he became a candidate. But it was just, it showed.
No, he said it on stage in one of the debates. He was saying how beautiful babies go in and they come out and they're, then they're different. After vaccination.
The 2014 tweet was the one where he made the direct link between vaccination and autism, which is absolutely disgraceful. It was well before he became a candidate, and he should have been held to account on it, but of course he wasn't.
It just gave this huge
I don't recall him
base.
discussing it publicly, but he should have been asked on it repeatedly.
Yeah, Biden's not going to do shit like that. He just won't nod to anti-vaxxers. I don't know if he's going to come out swinging with anti-vaxxers, but I would like a little bit of anti-vaccine sentiment is malarkey sort of thing. But honestly, I think it'll just poke the bear anyway. So you may as well just sort of hope that they just sort of
seeing a lot of them deplatformed, through major social media sites. That's going to have an impact too. I mean,
it's great to watch. God.
Yeah,
relieving.
So we are really on the cusp of something great, globally quite great that comes out of
I'm feeling
an horrific sort of episode like a pandemic. I mean that we return to sort of knowledge and science and rationality.
Yeah. And just like intelligent people in important roles in government, as opposed to just like fucking Scaramucci and just like random mates. Like, I read this guy in a bar a while ago. He seemed nice. Let's make him Secretary of State. Like, what the fuck? Like,
wasn't as simple as that. I met him in a bar. It was like, this guy's forked in, $4 million to my campaign fund.
Yeah. Or so he says nice things about me in public.
I'll make him ambassador to the EU. That sort of. Look, to be fair, the Democrats do it all the time too. So we're about to see a new US ambassador to Australia come here. He's almost certainly going to be a Biden appointee. Joe Biden's going to smile and say lovely things about Australia and how we've always been together and all those sorts of things. So there's a
alliance, blah, blah.
And it's a good thing for Australia, and really Australia's strategic interests are all about American military naval power in the Pacific, and that's where we need to position them. This is why it was a good move to have the Marines come to Darwin and train there in big numbers. And these things have to be sorted out. I mean, it's not just because we're being pushed around by China, but if you're going to pick a side between America and China, I know which one I'd pick. Against the
totally
evil
the
totalitarian government.
They're not very nice.
It's in the business of making its citizens disappear and trying them for asking hard questions of the regime, or even easy ones,
They've set Biden up for a fall either way he does this, because basically they're all saying, Biden's in the pocket of China. I've got no reason to believe that. I don't see any merit in that claim. I think it's just a random attack.
Well, this is something the GOP tried to put around during the campaign, that Biden was some, sort of puppet of Xi Jinping and China, and certainly it's had plenty to do with China, but anyone at that level of politics historically is going to have plenty to do with China, and indeed so did Donald Trump. Donald Trump was basically soft on the pandemic early on, because as he told everybody, and this is on the public record, I mean, he said, Xi Jinping's got this under control, he's doing a wonderful job, he's doing a great job, the best job, and all that sort of stuff. And so, I'm very, very confident. And that was because Trump wanted to put together a trade deal that would sort out some of the problems he'd created for himself with ratcheting up, basically creating a trade war with China.
And a huge part of his platform was basically stopping China from taking the piss economically, which a lot of it is around the fact they have state control of their economics. And let's face it, they're an absolute poster for why communism works better than capitalism.
You can just imagine this. You can just imagine the conversation. Rebus just finished his explanation about whether badges were tidy or not. And then Trump looks at figures, which basically, the balance of trade between China and America. Says, why aren't we winning this? And well, it's not really like that. Basically, what he did, he goes, well, why don't we just put tariffs up, and that way, we'll have the balance of trade. And all tariffs basically do is create taxes. It's like a tax on your own country, on your own people. And
a lot of the money that they were spending in agriculture was subsidies given to farmers that could no longer sell their shit to China, keeping them afloat.
It's handled very, very well in Catch-22, whose Major's father had made a fortune out of not growing. I can't remember what it is. Not growing sorghum, I think. Not growing sorghum. And living off US rural subsidies. But they had to subsidise those people, those farmers who had basically lost their markets to China. There was a response from the Chinese too, so that just made everyone else's stuff expensive, manufacturing goods and all that sort of stuff.
And there was no certainty. There's zero certainty.
It's absolutely insane.
You can't do it. The main thing you got to do is you got to promise industry that conditions will be stable regardless of the trade war. And he didn't do that, because subsidizing industry outside of agriculture is seen as some sort of communist thing and not done. And it's done because, I'm sorry, but if you are going to fuck around with trade wars, confidence in the market is everything. And if the market doesn't have confidence, they do not do stuff because they don't know if conditions are going to change. That kind of certainty was completely lacking in the Trump administration.
That stability
he fucking sucks at business.
Is required in geopolitics. If the Chinese probably are saying, we're looking forward to Joe Biden being president.
Yeah.
And that might be perceived in a dark way, but all they're really saying is we'd welcome the stability.
We don't want to have a lunatic in the bloody West Wing anymore. Fair enough.
Yeah, I think the grand banquets are over with Kim Jong-un too. I mean, I can't see that sort of policy being shifted around. It'll be interesting to see what he gets up to. Didn't he just have a round of mass executions and then an apology over some of the policies that that had made all those people starve, those millions of people starve?
Just casually.
So things aren't going all that swimmingly over there, but.
While he's eating raclette for breakfast.
It's totally weird. Yeah. Basically sending a plane over to Tokyo to pick him up Burger King. So look, the Chinese are probably quite happy that Biden's in the White House, only because, we've got a stable guy that if they say one thing and we say the other, basically everyone understands where everyone stands, right?
Yeah, and there's this transitional period where everything's going to be up in the air, and there's going to be lots of misinformation, and the Q kids are still going to be hammering on about March inaugurations for Trump and all this sort of thing. But as time goes over, people will move on. They'll either forget about Trump or consciously decide that he's a bit of a fuckwit, and things will kind of go back to normal by the sounds of things. I hope. I'm actually quite bored of the sideshow. It was fun, but I'm tired.
I think that's what Americans are actually voted for, to be honest.
Return to boring predictability,
boring politics,
boring basic corruption, as opposed to elaborate fancy corruption.
Yeah, turn up at the basketball and wave and all that sort of stuff. But we just want
still jobs for mates. But at the same time, we
just want things to just be a little bit normal. That was the sense. I mean, I did hear the expression used, and probably not by a Trump follower who changed, but someone who's working in Washington saying basically every day it's like going past a car crash.
Yeah,
and you see every morning you drive to work, you see a car crash, and the one thing you wish for after 4 years of this is that you drive to work in the morning and don't see a car accident, and that's kind of where we are. That
really sums it up.
Yeah,
it really does. And at this point, surely all the several people who voted for Trump must be regretting their decision.
Oh, look, this is what's going to happen to Trump. I said, I'm not the only one, but I have predicted he'll just disappear, and we're starting to see his support crumble. And we saw it really from the November 3 election, from the centre. People were going, why aren't you accepting the result? Right?
Yeah.
So he was able to pill some people. There's no doubt about that. Well, others just said, just accept the result, will you?
Yeah. Stop carrying on a child.
And so we might call that the sort of centre sector. And then when we get out to the right, I saw some really interesting things this week. I saw the Proud Boys. They were doing some heavy posting, giving the Donald a hard time.
That's surprising.
Calling him weak and urging the Proud Boys to walk away from him. And that's significant. So the right's falling off him. So he's got the old pincer movement, the war on two fronts going on. And
where are the Proud Boys going to go? Like, where are they taking their precious votes? Like, he's the most authoritarian, shitty person they can find.
They were like his Praetorian Guard. And so it's not the votes, it's the violence and publicity that they attract around the violence.
Yeah, and it's also having an organised wing that can, sort of just do shit.
Yeah, and that, yes, I mean, it's one thing that you would say about them, because they are a neo-Nazi group, they are bloody well organised, but it was really interesting to see them drop off. Now, we haven't seen that so much in QAnon. I did have a look at QAnon after some of the QAnon haunts after the inauguration, and yes, there was some noise. People saying we've been had, we've been tricked. I'm out of here.
I was expecting more of that, to be honest.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people are holding the line over this idea that that Biden is being sworn in as a president of the defunct corporation of the United States of America, and that defunct corporation is the 46th president. He'll be the 19th president of the Republic, which I don't know how this is. It's just sob-sit nonsense.
Yeah,
but
it is.
People are holding quite firm on this. They really do think the military has this whole thing taken care of, and that the military is on Trump's side, and March is it. But then after March, are they going to move the goalpost again? Like, the goalpost shifted to inauguration day.
Of course we know they will, but they will to a diminishing group of followers every time.
Yeah.
That's my point. So it's not just
I think
the
March will
that's
losing
his support.
People will lose faith in March.
Oh, look,
I think.
And I think a lot, I think a fair number have. And you have to remember that some of these guys, QAnon people particularly, so rusted on, that they'll need to be, professionally deprogrammed. We did offer our services in that regard, didn't we, last week?
We did, and you know the plastic cricket bats just over there. You know, it's a nice shade of yellow.
I'm not using a plastic cricket bat, Joel. Come on.
Oh, come on! You've got to start low and work your way up.
I want to pick up the gun and more and just go hard.
You want to get some good English willow onto the case, do you? Good stuff.
Plastic bats, that's just a slapping.
Well.
If you got to deprogram QAnon people, you know, it's got to be the cricket bat. You know, good 15 minutes.
Stuff.
Yeah, good 15 minutes on the air every hour.
And they're just going to have a rough time.
Yeah, but
it'll be a shit year for them.
That's what I mean. You know, some of these people really have to be deprogrammed.
And
in
like,
order to be less harmful.
Their whole world has just crumbled in front of them because they've set themselves up with this identity, which basically revolves around Trump's existence as a political sort of deity, and all of this media they consume, your Lynn Woods and all these sort of characters, that they absolutely just hang off every word they say. And now it's all sort of gone. Like Lynn Wood is getting chased out of the bar and basically being discredited. The guy is fucked. And most of their idols are either deplatformed, quietly becoming irrelevant. And I think it's going to be like a 3 to 6 month process where quite a lot of this stuff does vanish. And then you've got this interesting thing, which I've noticed on Twitter. And I'm not going to name any names, but I have been, sort of watching this, where QAnon researchers and people who report on QAnon and things like that, they look desperate for this to continue going. They have a career. They have, raise on debt.
Yeah.
And it's getting to that point where it feels like they're becoming grifters, because before it was like they were interesting QAnon researchers, and now they're almost like trying to like stay relevant, but like in a desperate and almost toxic kind of way.
Oh,
it's weird. It's weird to watch.
We certainly haven't heard the last from QAnon, and really the thing could just still go down in flames, very, very spectacularly and badly.
Yeah.
But what we have seen is some people who might have been attached to the group having some sympathy towards it, being driven by that motivating force of saving children, that sort of
those guys will still be standing around, Holly Weird, Pedo Wood, all that sort of nonsense.
Yeah.
I'm surely they're not going to just suddenly go, oh, hold on. Maybe they're not pedos.
Not the Rustodons. That's definitely true. But it was nice to see some of their numbers drop off after the inauguration. I mean, some people do still. That proves that some of them had some sort of, still clinging vaguely to reality.
Yeah, like the MAGA cult will drop in numbers heavily. I think the Pastel Q, Save the Children types are going to be, I wouldn't say galvanized, but I think they're going to kick back on the move toward Biden. They're going to be convinced that Biden's fiddling kids underneath the White House, and they're going to make up a whole bunch of really trashy shit about it. Yeah. But I don't think they're leaving. I think the Save the Children rally is going to absolutely continue. But I think they'll stop talking about Trump. But I think they'll still be saying that Q sent them. But Q's dead anyway. The guy's not posting.
Killed him. Yeah.
And Ron Watkins has said, okay, that was fun. Let's stop. And let's face it, it's probably Ron who's doing the Q drops. So at the end of the day,
it was he gave it the old. It was fun while it lasted. On moving on during the week, didn't he? And
absolutely.
So at least we know he's got some sort of grasp of reality and saying, I'm not wasting my time on this anymore. I mean, the thing's moved on. So
jumping before he's pushed, I think, because let's face it, I would be very much thinking about when, not if, the FBI or the CIA are going to come over to Japan and knock on his door and say, "Hey, Ron, can we have a chat?"
Yeah, let's come and have a chat.
In a very well-lit room.
And look, I tell you what, if the FBI are going to do that, they're going to take all that trouble to go to Japan and pick him up. And they might be having a look at Bannon.
He's a free man now.
Well, he's been pardoned for offences he's committed, not for he's been convicted of, but not the ones that he's actually committed. So you could argue that he's committed. So what role he played in establishing this kind of psyop, which is right down his alley. Roger Stone is another one the FBI should be having a look at, or a talk to.
It's got his fingerprints all over it.
He was basically running around addressing all this. You've got a couple of congresswomen too who've got some big problems. So if we actually had a quiet week this week, I think a lot of it was down to FBI head down, bum up, looking at some very, very serious business. We did see a report that Trump had intended to replace his acting Attorney General and replace it with one of his lackeys, so he would be able to have federally funded his actions against the state electoral bodies, in those contended states.
My lack of surprise.
Yeah, and apparently everyone in the office just said, no, if you do that, we're out. And so he pulled away from it. But they'll be looking long and hard at Trump and really. So I thought perhaps a couple of weeks ago that the Democrats might just be satisfied with impeaching him for the second time, and the trial wouldn't continue into the Senate, but it will.
Yeah, and it might get up.
Look, it will under new Senate numbers, so that makes it a little bit easier to convict. And
easier,
you just wonder what the view of the Republican Party is going to be towards Trump. Trump would need to be very, very quiet, I would think, over the next couple of weeks. If he starts chirping away, then and he can't really because he's still not back on social media. Then I think people like McConnell might say, "Well, let's just cut this bloke in half." We're just drawing and quartering. And the conviction would be absolutely and utterly unique. It would strip him of essentially all presidential entitlements, including the Secret Service that he hired to be paid by the American taxpayer to protect his family, extended family, that is, the kids, the all that sort of stuff. And that's just completely unheard of. But he would not have access to those things. He would not have access to any government pension, not that that's probably going to matter too much to him. And, of course, he would not be allowed to run again.
Yeah, which I think,
So I think
that'd give a lot of Republicans a lot of peace of mind.
And just what the Republicans are going to do about it, how they're going to respond in what number, I suspect they'll do the old, come on, let's just, spirit of forgiveness and peace and
I personally
bit of
can't
healing.
See it getting up.
Come on,
it's too much. It's too many senators. It's a vast portion.
They
of the
won't
Senate.
go through with it, and they'll vote against conviction. Of course, they need not quite 2/3 majority, but so they'll need. I think it's 13 or 14 to cross the floor.
Yeah, I think I heard the number 17. I don't know, but it's a lot. It's a decent amount.
So we'll see how that goes. I think under the new Senate arrangements, it's 13. So, but not entirely sure. It's not as improbable as it would have been certainly a year ago. And it just depends on what the mood of the Republican Party is to see how that goes,
True.
But that's something that is going to keep him absolutely locked up. And he'll be just going mad, just be grabbing people at Mar-a-Lago and just screaming at them.
He's going to be unhinged as shit. I would not want to be around him.
I'm almost 100% certain that he's finished and that his political career is over. That doesn't mean his kids won't try, but
oh god,
I think when they've looked at how the Trump brand's going, they might just want to disappear somewhere, get a big plot of land in Montana, and go and live there.
It would be a very, very wise move. I think that would be a very, very wise move.
Yeah.
So we had Bernie Sanders at the inauguration wearing his giant mittens, which everyone seems to have done backflips over. I don't even find it that funny, but I love that people do. I just like when Bernie's anywhere.
It's one of those things. Initially, it wasn't that funny, but then the memes get better and better, and
many.
Yeah, they've been.
It's just so far-reaching. It's one of the things that I really did not see coming. I love the fact that that Bernie has a really strong role in the new White House, in the new administration, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out. Because if he's got the ability to do stuff, he will use it.
Well,
if they give him a role, he's going to fulfill
maybe.
it. He's not one to fuck around. But we'll see what happens.
If you're going to speculate, you might say that might be the first dummy spit in the Biden administration that Bernie cracks the shits over something and walks away and makes a big
Yeah,
noise
it's
doing
plausible.
it. It's quite.
We'll see what
it's
happens.
Quite possible. We'll see what happens. But it's been a big week for Joe, and meanwhile, the Donald having a very, very quiet one. He did issue a few pardons on the way, well over 100.
Yes,
and and two, a bigger bunch of crooks you'd ever seen, probably since Clinton. Many people, including some very, very ordinary types. But Joe Exotic didn't get a.
Yeah, didn't get it. Did not get it.
Didn't get a Guernsey.
Very funny.
Very sad. That poor old Joe. He's had the COVID in the slammer. And he's pulled through that. And he thought he was a late Amaziah to get a pardon from Trump. He even had the limo pull up outside the slammer.
Yeah, the limo. Cost him a fortune, apparently. But, it's so American to have Joe fucking Exotic as, like, the guy who was lined up for it. But the funny thing, of course, is the fact that it didn't happen and the way in which the entire thing just became just an embarrassing farce.
Oh, look, Lil Wayne, who was on drug and firearms charges, he got one. But Joe Exotic has gone away for basically a contract killing. Or contracting someone to murder someone on his behalf.
Yep.
Which missed out, which just seems to me,
of.
Isn't that really just something you'd like to draw a line under and say, well, that was the Trump presidency really in a nutshell. It was whether Joe Exotic or Lil Wayne would get a pardon. That's what the news came down as,
That was on it. And like Julian Assange was on no list, but because of the fact that there's the whole thing of like, the deep state, Trump's fighting the deep state, blah, blah, blah. No bigger folk hero of conspiracy theorists than Julian Assange, who did not get a pardon.
Hello, Jules. Yeah, the clocks just started running. But clocks just started running on him too.
He'd be feeling very unsettled. But like, look, if Trump was this white hat, benevolent guy, Assange would have got a pardon. The best take I've seen on this is that he didn't do it because he's going to do it in his second term when everything gets straightened out. So these guys who are just coping so hard are like, no. Trump will pardon Julian Assange, but it's all happening behind the scenes. Well, don't worry, trust the plan. Fuck off, trust the plan. Trump doesn't care about Julian Assange because Trump is not the hero you think he is. And he only pays lip service to you fuckers because you vote for him. I mean, like...
Yes. We talked about the FBI pulling up a few like Roger Stone and one or two others. And I think they might having a word with Julian Assange as well, because there was definitely some involvement going on there. And Assange basically, his hatred of Hillary Clinton so blinded him that he became basically a distributor of basically Russian propaganda, and activism that spilled into the 2016 presidential election campaign. So he's got some questions to answer there. I know it hasn't been well, Jules, and frankly, I don't understand why there's this Free Julian Assange movement. I really don't get that at all. I mean, the idea that he is a journalist just in search of a greater truth, it might have been plausible 10 years ago. It's not now. It's not now.
I see what you mean. Like, I think he really did fuck it when it came to that whole, sort of sabotaging Hillary Clinton and all this sort of stuff, and just generally sort of, cutting over the line a little bit. I do find it difficult to swallow the idea that whistleblowers are criminals, and I'm not a big fan of that sort of thing. But the other thing with Julian Assange and that sort of thing is that this is a very complex story, and I think a lot of people who talk about it don't know what they're talking about, and I think I'm one of them. So, like, I don't want to make any sweeping statements.
Well, we should have a crack at it. It's a big thing. I mean, I just don't see him as look, he certainly was a whistleblower. The things that are after him now, the outstanding matters he's got, is conspiracy to basically lift material out of US military and intelligence databases. and that's more the whistleblowing type stuff. But his behaviour in the last 7 or 8 years and leading up to the Trump campaign is just really, really strange. I mean, Mike Pompeo described Assange as basically running a non-state intelligence agency, and that's not journalism and that's not truth-telling. Now, Pompeo's got all sorts of motivations, but he's actually right about that. Anyway, that's a topic for another time.
Yeah,
I just want to go back to impeachment and the prospects there, and this tells you kind of where Donald Trump is politically too. Rudy Giuliani has been given the elbow. He will not represent the Trumpster in his defence in his Senate trial. So that would mean
pretty funny.
I don't know if the Trumpsters even going to turn up, but someone's going to have to act on his behalf. And Giuliani was on the team, and he's been he hinted at team, but he has been declined just to take that edge of crazy off the proceedings. It's probably not a bad move. The Trumpster still has Alan Dershowitz on his team. In fact, that's pretty much the most senior it gets. Alan Dershowitz, for those who don't know, is shall we say, he's basically a Harvard law professor who is also accused of pedophilia. So, when you're being when you're being convicted in the Senate, that's the time when you say, okay, Alan, this is the time I want an accused pedophile defending me. I mean, it's just so bizarre. And the other thing is, there are no big firms. They're not even, your average conveyancer is basically putting their hands up and saying, I'll help you fight this.
Yeah. It's just like, it's ridiculous. And the thing that really shits with this is I actually didn't know that Dershowitz was a part of this until today. And it's just astounding to think that these fucking idiots are saying that Donald Trump is the protector of children from pedophiles in Hollywood. And there's a guy who openly talks about going into the change rooms of Miss America pageants that he does, who have girls that are as young as 15 years old. Here's a guy who hung out with Jeffrey Epstein extensively. And now it's like, oh, yeah, by the way, my bloody alleged pedophile mate's going to be representing me.
As did Alan Dershowitz, and that's where...
When do you draw the line that Trump is not the hero of the children? This should be the line. Being mates with Dershowitz says, I am completely okay with the idea of fucking children. And I'm sorry, but, like, if you are a Save the Children guy...
disputes the allegations because he is an accused pedophile.
And I will say allegedly for days. But, I have my suspicions.
And those allegations about Alan Dershowitz come from Virginia Roberts-Gifford, who's made other allegations
I had a pretty rough time.
Jeffrey Epstein's pedophilia and whether Ghislaine Maxwell has been involved in that. And also in regard to Prince Andrew. He's got some questions to answer there. So there you go. The Trumpster, he's had a very short list of lawyers to look after him. So he's gone the pedophile. Yep. He's left the crazy out. He's put the crazy on the bench. Rudy, have a spell.
And kept the alleged pedophile.
And we'll get a man who's been accused of pedophilia to get out there and save my reputation.
Watch the QAnon crowd just completely ignore this massive nod toward banging kids.
It's an extraordinary collision of crazy.
Yeah, and they just won't care. They won't give a flying fuck. And they'll know about it too. I mean, these guys are across every bloody move that Trump does, and this is just one of them they're just going to be okay with because no one has screamed at them about it. So they'll just go, oh, okay, it can't be anything to worry about. Trust the plan. Just stop trusting the plan. He isn't on your side. Ugh. Well, that's enough about the fake president of the defunct corporation of the United States of America. We need to look back to look forward, and we all look forward to looking back on what America's favorite son is up to, or at least what he's attempting. He's doing something, and he's someone's favorite, I suppose. America's maybe a part. Let's just check in on perpetual fuck up Eric Trump. He's like,
bastard. On Father's Day. Look, I've been very worried about Eric Trump and how, and indeed if, he'll cope with the catastrophic blow to the Trump name, the Trump family reputation, the Trump brand over the last 2 months. Eric is a good-looking boy, so he's got that going for him, but as it turns out, there's very little else in terms of basic human intelligence. It hasn't been easy for Eric. We've got a toaster oven that's smarter than you, the great orange one would often tell him. It has a clock in it. But I shouldn't have worried because Eric has bounced out of the blocks and staggered through the smouldering debris of the Trump empire and shown some get up and go and come up with an idea that wasn't his and bunged it out as his own mighty website called Trump Store.
Oh, how do you think that name up?
I've had a good look through it, Joel, and believe me, there's something there for everyone. Look, right now, it might be a bit of a slow day for Trump bath salts. Pack of 6 for $60, but Junior Squeeze Kimberly Guilfoyle has popped some of her favourite products in, including a large penis prosthesis, $280, discreet packaging extra, that made Eric giggle before he ran away crying.
Yep.
The truth be told, Eric hasn't been let anywhere near the family business since he tried to put his penis in an electrical socket back when his dad, who he loves, love you, Dad, couldn't make a quid out of running a casino in Atlantic City. Obviously, Eric's penis didn't fit in the socket. The holes were way too big. But it did spark an electrical fire in the Don's Taj Mahal casino, which sadly didn't cause enough damage to write the whole thing off and let Donald claim the lot on insurance.
Oh, never. He's just
And that's why Eric cries whenever the Donald throws Trump candles, $140 for a set of 3, not including postage and packaging, every time he sees him. But Eric is a good-looking boy, although he's got that foot thing. And try as hard as the plastic surgeons might, they've never quite come to grips with that funny eye of his.
No.
Man, but he does love his dad.
Oh,
love your dad. And now it's time for this segment, an important part of the conditional release program, so important that I know all our listeners have undertaken a 6-month crash course in Pittman shorthand just so they can write it all down and then read it over and over to themselves again later. It's the week in Pete Evans.
Not been such a huge week in Pete Evans this week. Not huge, no. See, it was meant to be, but it wasn't. And isn't because nothing happened.
That's right.
Not in the way that he was fucking describing it, at least. So Pete has been adamant that Trump has won the election for all, blah, 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 and has all the same ridiculous pill beliefs as our bet fan mates, mass arrests, all this sort of bullshit.
Yeah.
So he's been pushing that idea. The mass arrests are coming in on Inauguration Day. Get the popcorn out. It's going to be great. But he's been pushing this line so hard that it was always going to be really embarrassing when and if and how he was wrong. So now what? Like a retraction, an explanation? No, that's not our Pete.
No,
he's just kind of pretending.
He's not going to do that.
Yeah, he's just like sort of like, oh, what are you talking about, man? Like, and just posting more recipes than usual. Like, if you look at his Instagram, there's like, like a couple of salads and a loaf of bread, and I'm like, wow, yeah, you really you're shifting fucking gears now. That being said, Pete is still posting the usual trash on his Telegram, but this is like no-brainer shit that he's just sharing from fucking David O'Cutter Wolf. And it's the usual anti-vax bullshit and these basic American patriot memes. I don't even think he really knows what they mean. But old Prediction Pete is giving his crystal ball a little bit of a rest because it's been playing up recently and, getting everything wrong. Everything. It's just so fucking broken. The only hot take he has now, this is the only thing I've really seen him saying, is that true to the narrative that COVID was an elaborate way to get rid of Trump and the virus is now just going to start conveniently vanishing. And America's going to reopen and Biden's going to get all this credit for it and the objective has been completed to get rid of Trump. Well, that might happen because there is a huge vaccine program being rolled out. So, what? Fucking sick take, mate. So after a fairly bruising month of Pettivore Pete, and to be fair, a pretty bad year, Pete has had to accept that his mate Trump is politically toast, and most of the things that he believes are probably bullshit. I think he's going to start focusing on the salmon salad for a bit, and I think that's probably a good career move.
Smart move. This
year, Pete has been throwing these red pill grenades into crowded places, and the only person copying the shrapnel has been himself. I mean, the successful inauguration of Joe Biden really is just the cherry on the shit pie that is Pete Evans' career. And while a few of his followers have got to be wondering why the fuck they ever got involved with this idiot, the rest are going to pretend that they were only really there for the hemp bread recipe after all, and never truly thought that Trump was sent by God to save the world. Fuck off. We all know they bought it. They lapped it up when everything was exciting and interesting and there was popcorn to be eaten. So much fucking popcorn. God, I hate this guy.
I love the popcorn.
And they were wrong. They were just wrong.
Yeah.
You know, the popcorn didn't do anything. You just suck. And as per usual, our Pete, without a shred of modesty, has decided to just move on with his life. As if he hasn't been shitposting these predictions for fucking months at the mercy of his career and giving himself these giant, weird, violent erections at the thought of his enemies being executed on television just before Australia Day. I mean, look, let's see how long he can stay quiet for, because I have a feeling it will not be very long.
Yeah, it won't be long. It won't be long at all. And you have been listening to the Conditional Release program with your hosts, Jack the Insider and Joel Hill. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. And if you've enjoyed our bullshit, throw us a 5-star review on your podcast app.
Jack can be found on Twitter on @JackTheInsider and Joel on Crunchy Moses with a K. We've set up a Facebook page which you can find fairly easily. But also, as a side note, promoting a podcast is easier said than done, and people hate it when you plug your own podcast online. So if you could share this episode or a past episode you especially enjoyed on social media, we'd be eternally grateful. Help us reach ears.
Yes, please, if you can. And finally, all feedback, tips and death threats should be sent to the Conditional Release program @gmail.com. We would love to hear from you, even if it's simply to cowie punch us in the street, knock us out cold just for wearing a bit of knockdown Trump gear.
We probably deserve it. Thanks, listeners.
It's only $10. See you guys.
A bargain's a bargain. See you guys.